We made all of ours
we did too. And it was, I was impressed yesterday. So many nice. Did you go to the newest one we had that was just incorporated 3 weeks ago?
Jared was there, Leon.
Well, I know where the area is because I know where
Kind
he
of
lives.
mix of county and city.
I'd like to call to order the work session for
You're not on.
What?
You're not on.
I'm not on yet? I'd like to call to order the work session for April the 1st. Before we get started, the city clerk came to me just a second ago and gave me a message that Prince William is considering coming to the colonies for July the 4th, and Clearwater is on the list of possible sites for him to visit. They're wanting us to contact the British Embassy at 1-800-277-5653. Again, that number is 1-800-277-5653 to express our interest in having Prince William and possibly Princess Kate here.
You're not kidding, are you?
I don't know, call the number 1-800-277-5653.
Is that an April Fool's joke?
Well, it's one. The number translates to 1-800-APR-JOKE.
Okay. All right.
All right.
We're not part of the original 13 colonies, at least at this
No,
point.
but
I mean, he wouldn't visit
Oh well,
us.
maybe was it Prince William or or the King of Spain? Oh.
So then he'd be going to St. Augustine. He would probably even
Let's continue with the meeting here. Jeez. Our first order of business is, and this isn't a joke, we would like to honor our firefighters of the year, Sean Lawrence, and the fire medic of the year, Logan Chappell. If y'all would please come forward. Chief, do you have a write-up for them? And then we'll have the presentation.
You want to come down for the...
Yeah, well,
okay.
Go ahead and tell us
All
about
right,
it.
so again, Mayor, Council, good morning. You guys can come on up right here. So this is a little bit out of norm because normally we do it at the Capitol Theater or at our training center. But one of the things we asked to try and look at what we're meeting the needs of our members is different ways of presenting the firefighter of the year and the paramedic of the year. So as they regroup, and some coaches say it's a rebuilding year, we said, hey, I still want to show them off to you and show you why these two are the best of the best that Clearwater Fire has. And I'll read the write-up on both of them. So the first one is Paramedic of the Year, Logan Chappell. Fire Medic Logan Chappell has been selected as Clearwater Fire Rescue's 2018 Turner Award for Paramedic of Excellence. Fire Medic Chappell joined Clearwater Fire Rescue in October of 2016 and has demonstrated nothing but excellence in all aspects of his position. He has repeatedly shown exemplary performance under extreme conditions and continually strives to deliver exceptional medical care. He is currently assigned to Station 47A and has shown great interest in training new probationary fire medics. His knowledge of our medical protocols, along with his ability to systematically instruct while on calls, is an integral part to creating the foundation of our future fire medics. During the past year, Fire Medic Logan has been part of many critical and high exposure incidents within the city. While on scene, he has gained the notice of many senior crew members and officers for his systematic approach during high-stress EMS situations. Fire Medic Logan Chappell is recognized by his peers as an excellent clinician with progressive critical thinking abilities and has demonstrated excellent leadership abilities, and his dedication to the job, the department, and the community is evident in all that he does. Logan Chapel. Firefighter of the Year goes to Lieutenant Sean Lawrence. Lieutenant Sean Lawrence has been selected as the 2018 Firefighter of the Year. Lieutenant Lawrence began his career with the Clearwater Fire Rescue October 30th, 2005. Sean has served over the years as an outstanding firefighter, medic, driver, operator, and now as a fire lieutenant. Lieutenant Lawrence has been integral in facilitating lieutenant, driver, operator, and provisional fire medic training. He has facilitated numerous station company training exercises and scheduled standard evolutions throughout the department that go beyond expectations. He has been part of EMS training and suppression training for recruits and shows he wants to be involved in all aspects of personal development. Lieutenant Lawrence has been intricate with helping the probationary firefighter and recruit school, as well as training when probationary paramedics come to the line. He takes his task seriously and ensures that they are ready to move to their next step. Lieutenant Lawrence's hard work, dedication, and motivation instill strong confidence in his fellow colleagues going into any situation. He truly represents what Clearwater Fire Rescue stands for and instills those core values in his crew on a daily basis. While there is not one certain critical call that can be mentioned, he has made his crew capable and cohesive throughout the year to mitigate crisis situations, and these efforts call for consideration for his honor. Lieutenant Lawrence is a true leader and mentor to the others and demonstrates his dedication to the job, the department, and the community. For this reason, he's deserving of the 2018 Firefighter of the Year.
Why don't we go down there and take a picture with them? Just go down in front.
All of us, okay?
Yeah, sure. Wait, now you're tall. Wait, Adam. I'll look straight ahead.
Sorry.
Okay, back down. Agenda item 3.1, Mr. Horn.
Thank you, Mayor Council. Provide update on Complete Streets of Clearwater implementation plan, including a summary of preliminary implementation recommendations. Mr. Hartman.
Good morning, Mayor, Council. Rick Hartman, Transportation Planner. Want to provide you with an update on the Complete Streets implementation plan. We're coming to the end, and Jared Snyder from Kinley Horn, our consultant on the project, will give you that update. We're working on the draft report now. Then we're going to give that to the different departments in the next few weeks and have a couple weeks for them to review it, get together with them, incorporate their comments, suggestions, and concerns, deal with that, and then come to you with the final report for review and approval. So I'm going to turn this just to update over to Jared right now, and thank you very much.
Good morning. Good morning. How's everybody doing for a
Good.
Monday, right? Okay, let's see if I can get this going. Okay, as Rick said, we're going to do a quick update on where we are with the implementation plan at this point. I like this quote where it says, if you design a city for cars, it fails for everyone, including drivers. If you design a multimodal city, it works better for everyone. And really, what this is about is Complete Streets has been going on for 10 or 15 years now. This is nothing new. Cities across the country have really been looking at complete streets of how do we provide networks for all users. Essentially, you've got thousands of complete streets plans going on in the country for the last 10 or 15 years. So what are we trying to do? Safety is something that always comes up. We're looking at actual and perceived comfort for all users. Mobility, again, we're just looking at access to networks for not just those that are driving, but those that are bicycling or walking or taking transit. Something that gets lost quite a bit is the economic benefits. We don't talk about this enough. You know, how do we benefit the tourists that are out there? How do we benefit those that are the businesses that are accessing our streets? And then equity. We have a large number of citizens that are out there that do not own vehicles. Right now we've got 11% of all of our citizens don't own a vehicle. And that's just those that, doesn't count those that have one vehicle. So this is interesting. This is how we used to design our streets. We used to have the street function, how are cars moving about? And then we had traffic volume and speed. So our roadways were essentially designed on how do we get cars from point A to point B. And what this graphic's showing is we didn't really look at the right-of-way. We looked at how do we get vehicles. And then basically what we had essentially was two designs, an urban or a rural design. And essentially we designed the roadway. If we didn't have space for sidewalks, then we really didn't consider sidewalks. What we're trying to do with complete streets at this point, oh, I skipped over there. What we're trying to do is look at the land use context and the mobility strategies. So as we start to look at roadways, what are some of those roadways that have bicyclists or pedestrians? What are some of those opportunities for transit? Freight, that's a big one too. Our business community needs access to freight, and that's something that, or freight needs access to our businesses, and that's not something that's been considered in a lot of ways. So it's a way of looking at from our design components, how do we provide the right solution? Now this is something, again, that comes up quite a bit, and safety in the Tampa Bay area. We continually are on the dangerous by design list, number 9 this year, and we have been dropping, so there's been a lot of improvements, and a lot of our partners in the city are making a large effort, but we still continue to have a large number of accidents. In the last 5 years, we essentially had 52 fatals in the city of Clearwater, and 450 serious injuries. Bicyclists, we had 4 fatals and 34 serious injuries. Pedestrian, that's another one, 23 fatals in the last 5 years. This is a map kind of showing some of the hot spots. No surprises here. State Road 60, US 19. Belcher at State Road 60. So this isn't just a Clearwater issue. We're dealing with some of our partners as well. That's DOT and the county. So that's something that we've got a lot of work still to do here. So what are some of the benefits of complete streets? It's health and safety. How do we provide that network for others to get around? Again, safety's number 1, but I don't think we talk enough about the economic strength. It's about right-sizing our streets for the adjacent businesses. Equity, again, that's a big one, where we have 11% of our residents that don't drive. A large percentage of disabilities. There's over 20% of citizens have some sort of disability as well. So this is a key factor, and what I said there in the bottom are not all corridors are alike. Corridors need to meet different needs and opportunities to support all people. So that's really the essential key point there. So this is a slide showing some of our guiding principles, and what I like to think of these are kind of our guideposts essentially out there. When we're doing projects in the future, as we're investing our money as a city, what should we be considering? So safety, comfort, accessibility. Again, what are some of the multimodal options? Economic vitality and placemaking. Again, I'll keep hitting on that one. Designing the right street in the right area. Community health, and we've already hit on social equity. The environmental piece, and then technology. That's key. That's going to continue to morph in how we transition our roadways. We hear a lot about automated vehicles today and connected vehicles, so that's going to continue to be a discussion. How can we make what we have out there more efficient? We talk about signal optimization all the time. That's key. So what we have today, how do we make it more efficient? We looked at what's going on with population growth, and no one has a crystal ball, but as we say 10, 15,000 more residents in the next 20, 30 years, or 10,000 more employees, how do we deal with that? So that's what this plan is talking about. I touched on this briefly. Really, DOT and other partners. This is something they've really made. This is a really large transition. As you used to talk to DOT, they had several cross sections. It was again an urban or a rural cross section, and they've really tried to look at complete streets and have come out with a complete streets handbook several years ago, and what we call context classification guidelines, which essentially says is there's different land uses around the city. How do we design our streets differently? The Florida Design Manual, this is huge. This is huge. This is what engineers look at when they're designing roadways. And what this does now is it looks at different lane widths, which when you used to go design a roadway in the city or all over the Tampa Bay area, you essentially had interstate standards that you're designing to. So this handles the lane widths, the sidewalks, landscaping on the edges, and a whole number of other things. So this is really big. Local agencies are making a huge effort. Fort Pinellas MPO, and I have to congratulate y'all as a city, just won another grant application for Fort Harrison. So they're really looking at how can we get some innovative solutions. Obviously we've talked about Drew Street, and that was something that the MPO had funds for as well. Pinellas County just went throughout the county and did a complete streets assessment. Efforts in St. Petersburg are ongoing right now with their implementation plan, as well as in Tampa and Hillsborough County. So this is a real quick graphic of what we're trying to show is how different areas within the city, how do we design them differently, and that's what DOT is doing as well. So it goes all the way from kind of the suburban land use context to kind of more of an urban residential, urban general, and then urban core. What does that all mean? What that means is in downtown we're going to design streets a little differently than we would in some of the suburban areas, and that really looks at the sidewalks, lane widths, and those type of things. Again, this is looking at the different types of streets in the city. We have streets like State Road 60 and 580 and US 19 where we do have heavy car traffic, or we have freight, or we have transit that we're trying to move across. So there are higher speeds, but then we also have pedestrians and bicyclists as well. We have what we call the community connectors, where those are connecting essentially the thoroughfares to some of our local streets. So these are all different characteristics here, and not the same solution will come across in all of these. So this is a graphic just kind of showing the different tools, what's in our toolkit, if you will. What we look at between the curbs, we call it the traveled ways. So that could be on any given street. We could have bike lanes or bus lanes, turn lanes or medians, and that we're not going to have them all on every street. But what's most important, again, is that land use context adjacent to the street, and we call it the pedestrian realm. And that's where we're really trying to get the street to match up what the adjacent land uses look like today, or what we would like them to look like in the future. In a downtown area,
Excuse me 1 second. This is no joke. Please silence your electronic devices. It should be without saying that when you walk into a public meeting that you silence your devices.
Thank you. Also key is intersections and crossings. That's where we've seen the vast majority of crashes. And there's a lot of solutions there. Is it lighting or reducing the crossing distances? That's really key. We have a lot of crashes at the intersections. So now I'm going to walk through just kind of a couple examples of complete streets projects. And there's been a lot of discussion here, and I know around the Tampa Bay area and around the country. This has been, again, going on for a while, where complete streets has been mentioned as road diets or lane reductions. There are a lot of different solutions. That's certainly one type of complete street project, but there are also some smaller incremental projects, and that's really what we're trying to hit on. There's things like this picture where we're showing the gentleman walking what I like to call the cow path. So really producing the sidewalks and then also the crossings that you can't see in this picture, but there's essentially they resurface the roadway and they reduce the crossing distance. It's absolutely key in a lot of our hotspot areas. This is another one. This is essentially restriping the roadway. There was a lot of pavement out there. It was a 2-lane roadway. It still stayed as a 2-lane roadway, and essentially striped out the median to help pedestrians get across, and then also more efficient for those driving as well, as you had left turns that were implemented further down in the roadway. So quite a transformation just with striping and some curb. This is another example with some landscaping in the median. There was a bicycle lane added, and then you can see the bus on the upper end as well, so that there was more of a striped out area for buses further down the corridor as well. So again, we're trying to hit all different modes. This is an example that we see all over the country, and you see it in areas in the city as well. How can we use what we have today for economic development? Here's a land or a parcel essentially that's got a lot of pavement out there. You've got 70 foot of pavement, which is a very long area to cross, and it's just wasted space. So how can we kind of tee that off and use the space out there to create more green space and even more area for businesses? And it's also a safety aspect for those driving, walking, biking. I can't say it enough. Here's some pictures of how we've seen striping. There's really no, anytime we move the curbs, that's essentially the biggest investment. So how can we just use what we have out there and make it better? And sometimes we could do this incrementally, and you go back and go even further. But here's an example in the middle where it's just flex posts, and it's a little bit of a little bit of paint, and that created a bicycle facility. The one on the right is probably one of the more challenging projects that we've worked on. It's Central Avenue in the city of Naples going into downtown. You had just a street that needed some attention. It was really just kind of a raceway through there, and now you've got parking that's been placed for businesses. You've got striped out areas for bicyclists. You've got safer crossings and slower speeds. And the thing I want to say again, or touch on first here is we talk about speed. This is the #1 thing that DOT is really trying to look at, because speed kills. And it's not a war on cars. What we're trying to do is control the speeds. And the same thing with that Florida design manual that DOT is looking at. We're trying to control speed so that people aren't going 15, 20 miles per hour over the posted speed, which we're seeing all over the place. It's to try to make people design the roadways so that they feel that they have to drive what the posted speed is. And what we did on this Naples project is we showed essentially the travel time progression was the same. So you had areas where you might have gone slower and experienced more congestion, but the travel time progression across that 1 or 2 mile section was the same as it was before this improvement. So what we're trying to do, implementation of the complete streets, here's what we're trying to look at is not just standalone expensive projects. We're trying to look at major and minor capital projects, or where do you implement complete streets elements in major and minor capital projects. Anytime you have a maintenance or resurfacing, it's really looking at that street and looking at the full network again, of the transit network, the bike network, pedestrians, and auto. How can we improve what we got out there? Any hotspot areas that we know about, safety or intersection issues, let's get out there and try to fix those. And then we hit on this a little bit. We're dealing with some of the partners, DOT, Pinellas County, and the surrounding areas. A big one, anytime we have private development, let's look at what can we do with some of our land development regulations to implement complete street projects. And the last one I'll say, quick builds there, is really we're just trying to look at some of those striping improvements. Where can we make some enhancements pretty quickly? Ooh, apologize for that. Going the wrong direction. So the key plan recommendations, what we're looking at right now is an interdepartmental process, and Rick and others, we've been meeting with all the departments to talk about, as we scope out projects or have any kind of improvement within the city, how do we look at complete street enhancements? How do we approve how do we look at an approved policy? That's something that's going on, again, around the country. You know, we established a Complete Streets Advisory Committee, so continuing with that, I think that's been a good group to bounce ideas off of, and continue to move on with that. Again, I can't say it enough. How do we look at our comprehensive plan and our community development code to bring in complete streets and those reviews? Education's key. Here's Rick and Gina walking the city here with their sign. So I think talking to the business community, kids in school, to understand what we're trying to talk about and achieve here. You know, I really think it starts with kids. What does Clearwater become as we grow? And then the bike ped master plan, that's a big one as well. You know, how do we create an integrated plan where bicyclists can get around the city? Last thing is really evaluating the plan success. I can't say that enough. We have a benchmark that we've set today of what we have as far as our roadway network performance, our bike network, our pedestrian network. How do we continue to improve that? You got to continue to measure it. So with that, I'll leave you with any questions.
Any questions on this presentation, Mr. Hamilton?
Well, and I appreciate the presentation, and I agree. I like the complete streets concept and the approach, but the implementation of it, I'm looking for guidance. When you look specifically at our Drew Street plan, I drive Drew Street a lot, and in the afternoon at peak time, with 2 lanes of traffic, it's backed up extensively. With the complete street plan, we're going to put all of that traffic into 1 lane. How do we convince the county, who controls our traffic lights, that people traveling east-west are just as important as people traveling north-south? Because the county at peak times seems to be much more interested in moving people north-south instead of east-west. How do we convince them otherwise?
Yeah, I think that's key. That's what I was hitting on with the technology piece a little bit of really looking at the overall network and how you're moving vehicles around at the PM peak. That's definitely part of it, and we're going to have to continue to work with the county on that because, like you said, they control a lot of the signals.
Yeah. And that's my one concern, major concern about the plan itself. So.
I think the other thing I'd say is that's where we need to continue to look at the intersections. Those are, so often we talk about the entire roadway, but the intersections are absolutely key, you know, especially those PM hours.
Any other questions? Mr. Alberts.
Yeah, I have this kind of the same concern, and I was at the planning sessions, and I kind of agreed that, you know, as part of Drew Street, we needed to fix the right and left turns because that inside lane seems to be the one that always stops and is very dangerous. But I just want to make sure to Mr. Hamilton's question that we account for the rush hour traffic getting downtown in the morning and then in the afternoon leaving. And if there's a way we can do, I don't know, maybe look at doing a flip on, you have more, I don't know how you do it, but just make sure we take that in consideration.
Sure. Mr. Albert, Mr. Poglace.
Since we're talking about Drew Street, I went to some of those community meetings as well, and you brought up the problem of intersections, and they are all traffic lighted intersections. So that in and of itself, property acquisition, Drew Street becomes very problematic in implementing many of these different tools. One thing that I didn't hear at any of these community meetings, and addressing intersections specifically, because that's where there's a big, if they're not sequenced and the county controls it and we can't really get a significant remedy with signalization, I didn't hear anybody talk about roundabouts. And again, that goes to property acquisition, but I know the one at the beach handles massive amounts, so they do in fact work. Were they being considered at all in a smaller type scale, so you don't have to have the big circle? Would they still work on Drew Street? Have we looked at that?
Yeah, I think one of the things, this is a DOT roadway specifically within the segment, but the area around Missouri, that's definitely one area that could be looked at and was touched on with DOT and will continue to be.
Well, Highland, I know the properties are right on the corner, but it is a fairly large footprint. So the circle was smaller. I just didn't know if there was enough asphalt.
Definitely a solution you could look at. Like you said, the capacity, if you were to go down to 2 lanes, the capacity with the roundabout's much higher.
Yeah, yeah. Well, and I guess in the future, when we revisit Drew Street again, that may be what I think. I'd like to see a little bit of a conversation wrapped around. Thanks.
Mr. Cundiff.
I was going to ask, we were given some diagrams half a year or so ago, and one of the big things I noticed was that there were opportunities to improve the intersections in 3 or 4 places along Drew Street. Are we going to go ahead with those? I don't know if you can answer that. Or
yes. Well, we're talking with the county about those hot spots as well as FDOT as part of the lane elimination guidelines that FDOT require. They will be looking at those hot spots, how we can improve the flow of vehicles. That's the key here, keeping the travel time to a minimum, even with slower speeds. Roundabouts are part of that review. So these different functions will come up during the review process, working with our county partners and with the FDOT on their lane elimination process. Look at all factors that might, be able to handle traffic at given volumes. And so that is always part of every complete street review, looking at the traffic volumes, time of day, and travel times.
Are you saying then that we're not at the point we can implement them yet?
We have
because of the conversation.
Right. We have to have conversations with them and get their agreement on what we want to do at those intersections. And as Jared's saying, crossings and intersections are a big key. So that'll be a co-equal focus as well as corridors as we move forward.
Mr. Horn.
Just as a reminder, when it comes to Drew Street, we got out in front of the complete street policy development. So, so that's why there's this language of time, because we've got to have policy. You all reacted, at least some of you reacted to the Drew Street, idea. So, so eventually, it's going to catch up, and we're going to come back to you with something. But it will be in the context of policy that our partners have also established, FDOT and the county.
And it's interesting if I could just, to me it's interesting as you go along Drew, there are 2 trails that cross Drew Street. Do we treat those intersections differently in order to get the trail traffic across safely?
Well, we design differently, but we want to provide ample room for people to cross at the trails, as well as it's all part of making the citywide connectivity, which is key to travel concerns north, south, and east, west. So there are different designs for a trail crossing a major road as opposed to a sidewalk, but they're not so different. You just have different signal timing, some different striping and such, and we try to enhance those areas with the green paint because they're major conflict points. So we want everybody to know, hey, watch out, something's happening here, and be aware. So that's why we implement some of the painted crosswalks, the striping, and enhanced signs, signals, and markings.
Whether we're on Drew Street or even Fort Harrison, or just about any street in the city where there is a traffic signal, you always have the person who thinks that, well, I'm not going to get stopped by the red light, so I'm going to block the intersection. And I wish that there was some way that we would step up our enforcement and education so that people realize that when they block an intersection, they're really not doing anybody any favors. And especially on Drew Street, because most recently I've experienced that several times where people were trying to make a turn and they couldn't because the intersection was blocked. The other thing that we have to keep in mind, and I will, as long as I'm up here, I'm going to be reminding y'all, Drew Street is not a residential street. We can't turn it into a residential street. It is a thoroughfare. And I sort of don't like this slide that you had where it said not all corridors are alike. Corridors need to meet different needs and opportunities and support all people. That's impossible. You can't meet different needs and support all people because the needs of people are different. And as soon as you turn Drew Street into something that it wasn't meant to be, it's going to impact people on Cleveland Street, and it's going to impact people in other residential streets. And you need to keep that in mind. It has happened time, you have your slides about how great complete streets are, but there are other areas who the neighbors have gotten upset or the businesses have gotten upset because of the impact the Complete Street program has had because you're trying to tailor it to a specific person. And here you're trying to tell me that it's going to support all people. It doesn't make sense.
Jared, if I may, because I wrote that. And you're exactly right. I wrote it poorly because it's what you're explaining. At no two streets are alike, or they shouldn't be treated alike just because they look alike. Streets are going to be, as part of this plan, designed for priority modes. So no street is going to be serving all people equally. Streets have to have different mobilities. If it's a vehicle, then that's a priority that we need to design around. If it's people walking and access to transit and things like that, that's what the streets are. So I appreciate you clarifying my
Thank you for admitting, that and clarifying. So I appreciate that.
Thanks, Rick.
Okay.
I was going to say
a final comment on that?
I don't know. I sort of like where we ended.
No, I love the way you ended, but actually what I want to say, I think supports all of us in what we're trying to do. So my neighborhood is right off of Drew Street. It's Grandview Terrace. We were the second by the way, traffic calming, I think, is an incredible product. It should be a companion product to thoroughfares, ingress, egress, arterials. And it does make sense that the number one priority for Drew Street should be moving traffic, alternate methods to go east and west. But I think what needs to be taken into consideration is what they did for our neighborhood. And this was a project, we have a traffic calming circle right at Baker. And the crosswalk would have been really, really close to all of that traffic going up and down Drew Street. So what we did, and we had to work with the county to allow us to do the setbacks, and Karen Seal, I think, was chair at that time. And they absolutely loved the idea, understood it, and we moved the crosswalk back into the neighborhood so that pedestrians aren't encouraged to cross that sidewalk right on Drew Street, but come into the neighborhood, go like that, to keep them away from the street. So I think that's an example where pedestrian safety was considered, and we made an adjustment to still allow for a lot of traffic. So I don't know how that all looks,
Well,
But
I'm
the first and
glad
foremost
you
has
brought
to be
that up.
proposed.
I think where you put a lot of investment in traffic calming already. I think that's where, if we're talking about a bike network, we call them neighborhood greenways, but you utilize what you've already done with traffic calming, where you have slower speeds and people should be biking in those areas. And I appreciate the comment, and Rick, you've fallen on your sword there. But yeah, essentially what we were trying to show with those maps of the different context, from urban context to suburban, and then the street types as well, that's where we're really looking, as Rick said, at a modal priority for every street. So yeah, you're exactly right. Every street can't handle every user, but where are the streets? What are we trying to serve with all the streets?
Okay. Thank you very much. Ms. Warren, you had something?
Just one comment. The one thing that concerns me more than anything is the vehicle-bike conflict. And in our planning, I would hope that we would come up with a very aggressive program to help change some of the public mindset among our drivers, because I think our bicyclists are at risk, especially because of the speeds, especially in the thoroughfares that we just talked about, where during rush hour, the only thing that matters on that road are other vehicles, and even they don't matter sometimes. So just something to think about. We've got to change the mindset, because if we don't, then we're going to create these bike lanes, and come rush hour time, those cyclists are going to assume that the drivers, are really conscious of where they're at, what they're doing, turns they make, and then sometimes that's not going to happen.
I think you nailed it. We've had a lot of discussions on that. I think I'm really concerned where we have bicyclists on thoroughfares.
All right, thank you.
Well, Rick, just as a complete aside, Council, I don't know whether y'all saw this or not, but Utah became the second state in the country that is now allowing motorcyclists to drive in between vehicles when they're stopped on a thoroughfare. And, we see all the time, watch out, on motorcycle, watch out for the motorcycles. Well, sometimes, I feel like the motorcycle needs to watch out also, because they're weaving back and forth, is as much of a concern as the bicyclist. And I was surprised that states are now allowing you to do that without breaking the law. Had y'all seen that?
I have not.
Yeah, apparently the governor just signed it over the weekend.
It's common in other countries. But,
yeah,
we're
in
not
fact, that's what
familiar
they
with
said.
that law.
It was common in other countries, but not here in the States. Yeah.
Thank you very much.
Thank you very much. Thank y'all. Agenda item 4.1.
Approve a contract for purchase of real property by the city of Clearwater of certain real property owned by the school board of Pinellas County, Florida, with a purchase price of $1.8 million and total expenditures not to exceed $1.825 million. Authorize the appropriate officials to execute same, together with all other instruments required to effect closing, and approve the transfer of $1.825 million from general fund reserves at mid-year to cover the cost of the purchase. Mr. Lane.
Thank you. Chuck Lane, Assistant Director, Economic Development and Housing Department. This item is a staff recommendation to purchase the former North Ward School. The property is about 2 acres. It's located in the downtown zoning area within the Old Bay Character District. Its location and proximity to other city investments and assets makes this a good opportunity to acquire a property in a transitioning area, and we're getting a fair price for the property. We're paying a fair price for the property. At this price range, the city charter requires that we obtain 2 appraisals. Those appraisals were completed about a year ago. The appraised values were $1.5 million and $1.235 million. Those appraisals were more recently updated. The updated values came in at $1.85 and $1.475 million, respectively. The purchase price in the proposed contract is based on the midpoint of the 2 updated appraisals, which is $1.6625 million. The contract provides for additional consideration to be paid to the school board, which I'll explain in a moment. School board staff has requested 2 unique terms of the contract. One, the contract requires that if we sell the property within the next 5 years at a price exceeding $1.8 million, we will share that profit equally with the school board. The second unique term relates to the additional consideration that I mentioned a moment ago. The city will contribute $137,500 towards a project at Clearwater High School. The school board will be making a significant investment in the school located on Gulf to Bay. Right now, the total project cost is estimated at $30 to $35 million. Funding they get from the state for a project like this can't be spent on a landscaping or a beautification project. They've asked us for a contribution to a beautification project to help give the project a bit of a wow factor. It will be a landscape park-like setting visible from Gulf to Bay Boulevard. This brings our total expenditure to the school board to $1.8 million. Additionally, we'll have due diligence and closing costs of approximately $25,000. So the city's total expenditure on this acquisition will be $1,825,000. Funds from the city's general reserve fund will be used. Contract requires closing on or before June 28th. That may be extended for an additional 60 days by either party. If approved by council on Thursday, this contract will be presented to the school board on April 9th. Clint Herbeck, Associate Superintendent with the Pinellas County Schools, is here should you have any questions of him. That said, I'll take questions at this time.
Council, before I ask for questions, let me just give you a little bit more background. A couple of years ago, as you will recall, the school board closed North Ward. At the time, the superintendent and I had some conversations about, what other options we could use the school for, and we reached out to the county and our city employees to see if it might be possible to reopen it as a small school, for employees or people who worked in downtown. That really didn't work out. The school board looked at some other options for like a charter school or a center, and those weren't possible either. So, then the superintendent and I had some further conversations, and he said, well, would the city be interested in it? And at the time, that was when we were starting our North Marina, redevelopment and plan, and I thought that this would be an ideal situation for us, and I appreciate the superintendent and his staff working hard to try to bring this about for us, and I would encourage you all to support this on Thursday and today. Any questions? Mr.
Let Jay go first.
I'm sorry, Mr.
That's
Paul,
okay. It's unfortunate, but I think you might have answered this somehow, that we didn't buy it last year when the appraisals came in at 1.2 and 1.5. Because and part of the reason was, as I recall from my one-on-ones, the new appraisals requested by the county and the recent sales and what's going on up there is what's driven the price.
Yeah, right after those appraisals came in, some things occurred that really indicated an abrupt shift in market values in the neighborhood. One was the approval of the Clearwater Downtown Redevelopment Plan. For example, on this property alone, that plan nearly tripled the allowable densities in FAR. That's a direct effect on value and happened throughout the district. So the appraisals that we had really became old very quickly and unreliable.
So we're a little bit of a victim of our own progressive thinking in that area.
But we can recoup it.
Oh,
Yes,
I don't
can.
disagree. I
Yeah.
100% support this,
Yeah.
and I think everybody in the community does as well.
Yeah. Mr.
No,
Hamilton?
I support this completely. And I appreciate Clint being here. Clint and I go back to basketball days, coaching against each other. This property has sentimental value to me. I mean, my mother was the May Queen of North Ward Elementary School when she was in school. But this is such a vital, strategic piece of property that for us to have control of it, as you've heard me say before, the only way we can control what happens to a piece of property is if you own it. And I think this is a great opportunity. I appreciate the school board seeing the value in us being the holder of that property, since it no longer provides value to them. My question is the $140,000 that we're giving them for landscaping at the high school. Do we have to pay that right now, or can we hold on to that money, but with the guarantee that we will give it to them when they get the Clearwater High School project going? Because I'm trying to use that as a carrot to get Clearwater High School's project started quicker, sooner rather than later, because it is definitely, I'm looking forward to Clearwater High getting redone as well.
I think Mr. Herbeck can, verify that they already are interviewing contractors for that property. Second.
So I'm just wondering, can we hold on to that money?
Well, the
Or
contract,
do we go ahead and give it to them and then,
the contract
No, they'll-
that we have stipulates that we give them that money now. Now, if they don't spend it within a certain amount of time, I believe it's 5 years in the contract, they need to pay it back. That project is anticipated to be completed in the fall of '21. So it's an aggressive timeline.
okay? No problem.
Consent?
Mayor, I just
Oh, I'm
want to
sorry, Mr.
respond
Ward.
to Councilmember Polglaz's comment about why we didn't buy it when we got the first two appraisals. You work with your partners. And so you can be as aggressive as you want to be, but if your partner is moving at a certain pace within their own process and having discussions internally, then you work with them. So it wasn't because we weren't moving quickly enough to take advantage of a lower appraisal. It had to do with other factors that were beyond our control.
Thank you, Nate.
Consent?
Yes.
Thank you all. Thank you very much. Agenda item 5.1.
Approve a contract with Olameter DPG LLC in the annual amount of $600,000 with the option for 2 one-year term extensions to provide natural gas line locating services and authorize the appropriate officials to execute same. Mr. Langell.
Good morning, Brian Langell, Assistant Director for Clearwater Gas System. This is our contract to locate all of our gas lines when there is a Sunshine 1 call that's been placed by Florida state statute. You're required to call this, and whenever you do any digging on right-of-way or in private property. So it's statute 556 of the Florida statutes. Olameter was the lowest and most responsive bidder on bid number 21-19. So there will be a new vendor of ours that we want to start within the next week.
Questions on 5.1? Consent? 6.1.
Approve grant funds awarded to the city from Clearwater for Youth in the amount of $18,000 for a flag football league and track program to serve local youth and establish a special program, G1907, Clearwater for Youth grants for these funds at mid-year. Mr. Dunbar.
Good morning, Kevin Dunbar, Director of Parks and Recreation. As City Manager said, these are for 2 grants from Clearwater for Youth that their board has already approved. One is to start a flag football program. Another one is to start a track program at Ross Norton. So it helps to basically defray the cost of all the equipment, but it'll be staff-led. Happy to answer any questions.
Questions for staff on 6.1, Mr. Kunda?
Where's the flag football going to be played?
The flag football is going to be played on the baseball fields behind Ross Norton. So in the outfields and baseball fields on Sundays.
Sundays. In the afternoon?
Late morning, early afternoon.
Consent?
Yes.
Why do they do things on Sunday mornings? 7.1.
Good question.
Approve the request from the owner of property addressed as 1416 Leo Lane East to vacate a 10-foot by 75-foot portion of a platted utility easement lying in Lot 32, Skycrest Greens Edition, as recorded in Plat Book 69, page 6 of the Public Records of Pinellas County, Florida, and pass the appropriate ordinance on first reading. Mr. Berzik. Oh, Mr.
I'll be in for Rob Berzak today. Tom Mahoney, Engineering Department. The homeowner has requested the vacation of this utility easement as their pool is encroaching into it. We reviewed the request, and we have no utilities in the easement, and I'll be happy to answer any questions.
Any questions on 7.1? Consent? 7.2.
7.2?
Yes, sir.
Declare surplus for conveyance to the City of Clearwater Community Redevelopment Agency certain real property located at 115 South Martin Luther King Jr. Avenue for a subsequent sale by the CRA for redevelopment purposes. Mr. Mahoney again.
Again, this property was acquired in 2003. An appraisal was performed on April 18th, 2018 at a price of $415,000. The CRA director has requested that the property be declared surplus for transfer to the CRA. City staff recommends the City Council approve the CRA proposal, whereby the CRA will purchase the property for a sales price of $354,000 $549,000.11. The city's finance director and CRA director have mutually agreed that this purchase price will make the city whole as to its investment. City stakeholders have reviewed declaring this surplus property and support the idea. Answer any questions.
I'm not sure I heard you correctly or not, but the appraisal didn't cost $415,000. That's how much.
It was appraised at $415,000.
For some reason, I thought I heard you.
You might have.
Yeah. Consent, questions, consent, Mr. Poglaze.
So I'm intimately involved with this property. I've been watching this piece of property for a long time, waiting for something to happen. And I know there's interest with this property. Now, I wasn't on council, and I might have missed it, but there was always a conversation of sale or lease. So has it been decided that it's going to, and I know that the CRA bought the adjacent property to the east because that property itself, this piece here, did not lend itself for enough parking for the size structure we were hoping to be able to develop there. So it says for subsequent sale, does that mean we would not entertain a long-term land lease with both of those parcels should they be developed together?
Well, the intent is to, I'll let
say no. It is just to be able to have those properties side by side, be able to merge them, be able to.
And controlled by one entity, the CRA.
Correct.
So that's the intent. Well, it was a little misleading for me. Think, sale. It says sale because not knowing exactly what the market's going to bear.
No determination has been made on whether to lease or sell.
Okay. Good. Thank you.
So, Councilman, if you would like for that wording to be changed, we could change the word for subsequent redevelopment.
Yes. Yeah, just take the sale out of it.
So if we can just change the word sale to redevelopment, then that would resolve your issue.
Well, it limits our opportunity, I feel.
I agree with you.
Kind of on the next one.
Mm-hmm.
Same, yeah, exactly
Yes.
the same thing.
Clarify APH.
Administrative public hearing, so these items cannot go on consent, they are public hearing items since we're declaring surplus.
So it will be on our calendar for Thursday night. 7.3.
Declare surplus for conveyance to City of Clearwater Community Redevelopment Agency, certain real property located at the southwest corner of Cleveland Street and South Dr. Martin Luther King Jr. Avenue, legally described as the north 282.5 feet of the east 50 feet of Block 5, according to the plat of Sarah McMullen's subdivision as recorded in Plat Book 1, page 41, Public Records of Pinellas County, Florida, together with all that part of the west 90 feet of the east 110 feet of the northwest 1/4 of the northwest 1/4 of Section 15, Township 29 South, Range 15 East, which lies between eastwardly projections of the north and south boundaries of a part of said Block 5, thus defined less and except any road rights-of-way. Mr. Mahoney again.
Hey, Council. This is the Cleveland Street parcel, correct? I'm sorry, I missed that.
7.3.
Oh, I read 7.4.
Yeah, I was trying to figure out what you, all right, let's do 7.4.
It was either mine was out of order or yours was.
Yeah, all right, let's do 7.4. Any questions on 7.4?
Okay, which one was that again?
7.4.
Let me see your map instead of me looking at this computer. So that's our parking lot that we bought.
That's the park.
That we did the land swap.
Okay. The land swap.
That's 7.3.
That's the existing parking lot on the corner, on the southwest corner of Cleveland and MLK.
Oh.
Okay?
Okay.
7.4.
Any questions? It's going to be on our calendar for Thursday anyway. All right, now we will do 7.3. Mr. Horner was playing an April Fool's joke for us. See if we were paying attention.
Sorry about that. Declare surplus for conveyance, the City of Clearwater Community Redevelopment Agency, certain real property located at the southwest corner of Prospect Avenue and Park Street, legally described as Tract 3 of the Plat Mediterranean Village in the Park, as recorded in Plat Book 125, pages 44 through 46 of the Public Records of Pinellas County, Florida, for subsequent resale by the CRA for redevelopment purposes.
Tom Mahoney, Engineering Department. This parcel was acquired in August of 2018. An appraisal was performed on March 21st of 2018 for the amount of $640,000. The CRA has requested the property be declared surplus to transfer to the CRA. City staff recommends City Council approve the item whereby the CRA will purchase for the sale price of $364,782.89. The City Finance Director and the CRA Director have mutually agreed that this price will make the city whole as to its investment. And I'll be happy to answer any questions for you.
Any questions on 7.5? Ms. Aiken, let's go back a second where you had, and Mr. Foglace had said about the redevelopment. Actually, it already says for redevelopment on here.
You can just.
So you want to just strike the, for redevelopment, for transfer to the CRA for redevelopment purposes?
And then strike the rest.
So we'll do that with this one also, 7.4. Okay? And it'll be on our calendar for Thursday. 7.5.
Approve a business lease contract between the City of Clearwater and Lutheran Services Florida, Inc. for the use of city-owned properties located at 701 North Missouri Avenue, and authorize the appropriate officials to execute same. Mr. Mahoney again.
This property is leased out to the Head Start program over the last 10 years, and specifically a nonprofit organization of Lutheran Services of Florida. The approximately 1 acre site contains playground and several small buildings. The proposed lease has terms and conditions similar to the previous one of $1 per year rental with a 5-year, with extensions for one year for 5 years, for a 5-year period. The staff has reviewed the lease and requests and supports the Lutheran Services of Florida's new lease. I'm happy to answer any questions.
Any questions on 7.5? Mr. Cundiff.
My math is not good, so this is a total of 10 years, possible?
5 years.
5 years.
With an option for
With an option for another 5 years. Is that or just?
Correct. That is correct.
Okay. I thought that's what it said. Thank you.
I think this is the property that during the United Way Day for Caring that we do.
Head Start program. Great program.
Consent?
Yeah.
7.6.
Approve a business lease contract between the City of Clearwater and Hope Academy International LLC for the use of a city-owned lot located at 918 Palmetto Avenue, and authorize the appropriate officials to execute same.
This is a vacant lot that was used previously by the daycare center. We have a new tenant there, and the previous leasee has decided not to renew. The new tenant will now provide the daycare center as well, and would like to lease the vacant lot to provide the same services. It was agreed that $1,000 per year would be appropriate for this lease, as they are not a nonprofit organization. And the initial term will be 1 year with an option to extend for an additional 4 year, for 4 additional 1-year terms. So I'll be happy to answer any questions.
Any questions on 7.6, Mr. Cundiff?
The nature of the organization, what's it called, Hope?
It will be
Hope Academy. It's going to be a playground, or?
It's going to be it'll be used for the same purpose it was for a playground. Yes, next to the daycare.
Do they pay, any other questions, council? No. Do they pay that $1,000 all at one time or monthly? And the reason I ask is you can't divide 12 into 1,000 and get an even number.
No, you can't. I'm not certain. I have not read the lease.
It's annual. It's an annual payment.
Yeah. Oh, it's a one-time payment?
Yes, sir.
Oh, okay.
And as I quickly look at it, that's what it appears to say.
Okay.
1,200.
Yeah, I would say 1,200 makes it, In the future, keep that in mind, that we divide things.
Make an extra 200.
Mr. Cundiff isn't the only one that's trouble with math. 7.7.
Approve Amendment 1 to joint partnership agreement between Pinellas County and City of Clearwater for the South Myrtle Avenue from Clearwater Largo Road to Bel Air Road Drainage Project, extending the expiration date to April 2021 and increasing estimated costs by $29,082.90, and authorize the appropriate officials to execute same. Mr. Brown.
Good morning. My name is Jeremy Brown. I'm the engineering manager for utilities. This item is an extension to the approved joint project agreement between the city and Pinellas County. The original one-year agreement expires this April, therefore it requires this extension that's before you today. Happy to respond to any questions.
Any questions on 7.7? Mr. Hamilton?
Not as much a question, but $29,082.90 doesn't sound like an estimate to me. It sounds like a pretty hard number.
It's an addition to the previous.
Exactly.
It's a good guess.
Yeah, exactly.
Consent?
Yes.
7.8.
Approve an engineer of record work order to Jones Edmonds of Tampa, Florida, in the amount of $163,000 for the Marshall Street Water Reclamation Facility Blend Tank Mixer Project, and authorize the appropriate officials to execute same. Mr. Brown again.
Jeremy Brown, Engineering Manager for Utilities. The existing mixer and its contents at the Marshall Street Water Reclamation Facility sludge blend tank was previously removed by a contractor so the tank could be inspected by an engineer of record. This project will design the replacement mixer in addition to piping and other recommendations that were made as a result of that inspection. I'm happy to respond to any questions.
Any questions on 7.8? Consent?
Thank you.
7.9.
Approve the conveyance of a distribution easement to Duke Energy for the installation and maintenance of a new power line and electric facilities for City of Clearwater property at 1005 North Old Coachman Road, and authorize the appropriate officials to execute same. Mr. Mahoney.
Mahoney Engineering Department. This relates to the new transfer station we're constructing on Old Coachman Road. This will be for the new electric facilities for Duke Energy. Happy to answer any questions.
Questions on 7.9? No. This is for our solid waste transfer facility, right?
Correct.
Yes.
Yeah, okay.
Yeah.
Consent?
Yes.
8.1.
Approve the agreement between Dunedin Blue Jays and the City of Clearwater Fire and Rescue Department to provide emergency medical services at Jack Russell Stadium for 2019 baseball events as outlined in the agreement, and authorize the Fire Chief of Clearwater Fire and Rescue to execute same. Chief Ellis.
Hey, good morning, Mayor, Council. Again, Scott Ellis, Fire Chief, Clearwater Fire Rescue. This item is that we're asking for your approval on is the agreement between Dunedin Blue Jays and the City of Clearwater to provide emergency medical services very similar to what we do at Spectrum Field with the Thrashers. This is for the 2019 baseball events because they shipped it over here by theirs under renovation. With that, I'm happy to answer any questions.
Questions for Chief on 8.1? Mr. Dunbar is not here yet, is he? Or he left? Okay. Mr. Horn, I think you can, Chief, this is sort of related. Over the weekend, we got an email, council, saying that we were doing work on Jack Russell Stadium without a permit. And Mr. Horn, can you I was going to have Mr. Dunbar answer that question. We have the proper permits.
Yeah, Mr. Dunbar did respond.
Yeah, no, I know he responded, but I'm just letting it out that for the public to know that despite some erroneous, comments that are being made that we're proceeding without permits, we have those permits in hand.
Yes, I'm not sure of the nature of the complainant.
Yeah.
We will look into it further because that's a very unusual kind of assertion made.
Yeah.
And doesn't.
No, I just wanted, thank you, Chief. I'm sorry, Mr. Albritton?
Okay, just looking at the contract, this is just for an hourly, I mean, it's no set price, it's just whatever it is it's going to be, you'll bill them and they'll pay it, basically.
That's correct. It's done by an hourly basis, correct.
Okay, thank you.
Consent?
Yes.
8.2.
Approve the 2019 Emergency Medical Services ALS First Responder Growth Management Agreement between Pinellas County and City of Clearwater to implement EMS growth management strategies and authorize the appropriate officials to execute same. Chief Ellers.
Yes, Scott Ellis, Fire Chief, Clearwater Fire Rescue. With me, I have Chief Tedesco, who's also my EMS chief, who monitors a lot of the stuff we do in regards to our rescue units. This item that we're asking for your approval on, as discussed in the one-on-ones, is the Emergency Medical ALS First Responder Growth Management Agreement with Pinellas County. As discussed in the one-on-ones, this growth management initiative is to take 2 EMS call determinants, just 2 of them. That's falls and sick person. And of those, the very low acuity level calls, meaning that there's no other conditions that are being met in regards to what the initial 911 call comes in as, that only a transport ambulance will be dispatched in a non-emergency response. No fire response would be initiated unless a repeat call comes in identifying more critical elements and/or the ambulance cannot be on scene within 20 minutes. These calls would be around 2,300 calls a year, which will keep advanced life support fire resources available for those more critical calls where response times really do make the difference between the patient outcomes. Also identified in this contract is the legacy units, which defines the current units that the county reimburses the city of Clearwater for will not change due to the decrease in call volume. This is the first time the county has ever looked at codifying this in any type of contract, so we look at that as a win. To date, the following agencies have signed on to this initiative: Largo, Lehman, Safety Harbor, Pinellas Suncoast, and Seminole. With that, I'm happy to answer any questions.
Questions for the chief on 8.2? Mr. Pogler.
Of all those communities, thank you, Mayor, of all those communities that have signed on, have they gained support, or how are their unions responding to this?
Those that I mentioned from the county, they were unanimously voted in. I don't believe there was any opposition from the union on any of those. I don't know of any that were.
Okay, that's good. Thank you.
Mr. Cundiff.
I know we've had one-on-ones on this subject. The goal of this policy change is to make severe emergency services available when they are called for, rather than have a wait or send too many trucks to one place where it's.
That is correct. The focus of this came out from a data-driven focus group, which is a consortium of all the chiefs, along with the county, to take a look at how we can control some of this increases every year. Our EMS responses are up 3 to 4% each year, and it just keeps going up and up and up. The answer before has always been just throw more resources at it, which costs taxpayers more money. With this one here was to take a look at the very low acuity calls like you had talked about. We're already responding on those calls, non-emergency. But what it does is it takes that fire ALS unit out of its zone and now ties it up on a very low acuity call. So if another call comes in that area, the response time is lengthened because it's coming from another location.
Any other questions, Council? Mr. Hamilton?
Yes, and I support this completely, but my question would be, is it just not allowed if we were to respond to a non-emergency type call, but somebody called 911 and we have to respond, and then they're on scene and there's no need for advanced treatment, just maybe transport to the hospital or something for an ambulance, is there a reason they wouldn't be able to leave that situation to go to an emergency situation?
Yeah, then we'd be abandoning the patient. Once we make contact with that individual,
we're allowed to abandon.
Then we're not, it's an abandonment.
Okay, that answers the question.
Chief, you had indicated cities that had supported, had any of them turned it down and will not be participating?
Yes, sir. Good question. It's an opt-in, so not all the communities opted in to do this. There's several, like Tarpon Springs, Dunedin, that do not want to opt in on this initiative. There's 2 others right now that are out there. St. Pete is one of them, and Eastlake that opted in, but they've had resistance either from their union to try and look at this initiative in St. Pete's, and they've been doing they have a special session again coming up here to try and look at this. And Eastlake, that was voted down by their district last week.
This, if I just a follow-up comment to try to give this will not affect rank and file union members. This is just to control escalating costs and growth. So anybody that's already in the fire department, and I understand union's position, it's always about growth and being able to hire more and expand. This does not affect any current firemen that are on, we don't do layoffs in the fire department.
You're exactly right. This actually, codifies those legacy units. Before, there's several units that we have. It's all dependent on call volume. And if call volume goes down, then what can happen is the county say, we're not going to, it doesn't meet the contract anymore, so we don't need to reimburse for that. What this does is it actually codifies in a contract saying that we're not going to take any funding away from you that we reimburse you for the current units that you have. No matter what the call volume does, so which is again a great thing. At any given moment in time as well, we can, again, one of the big things in this one was we can opt out. We can turn around and go, hey, this is really not working for us. We don't want to do this anymore, and then we respond to those calls again.
Right. Yeah. Yeah, that's important.
Council, do y'all want this on consent, or?
I'm okay on consent.
Okay. All right. We'll put that on consent then. 9.1.
Marine and Aviation Business Plan update from Mr. Ed Chesney, Director of Marine and Aviation Department.
Good morning, Ed Chesney, Marine and Aviation. Today's update is a work session only update, so I'm not going to ask you for any approvals. I just thought it was important to keep you informed on what's coming up in the near future. You know, within our 5-year CIP, we now are seeing the Beach Marina Replacement Project. And you may ask why that's important today. And I'll remind you, in 2010, we constructed and opened the Clearwater Harbor Marina project. At that time, I was the project manager, and I worked 4 years on that project before we ever broke ground. So with our CIP being 5 years away, I'm looking at the same project again in a different location. So this year, I have a CIP to begin that early programming phase, and that programming phase is really our design criteria. We need to know what we expect at the new marina, what we want there, what the slip mix is going to be, what the location is going to be, and all that is important because we will put that design criteria package together now in the years before it actually goes out to bid. When we did the marina downtown, that was a design build project, and we had all of those things built into what we knew we were going to get, costing, prices, what we can expect at that time. So that's going to begin this year, some of that early programming, stakeholder meetings with all of the groups out there, most importantly, most of our commercial tenants. When we did our downtown marina, we had a clean slate. It was easy to work around ourselves. So now I'm going to be working around the interest of 43 commercial slips, a busy beach walk, bustling marina area. We have already looked at utilities behind the marina. We'll do that again in advance. 2 years ago, 3 years ago, we opened up the sidewalk during the reconstruction of the marina building. We found a lot of deficiencies there. We know we have to correct some things that were built 50 years ago, water, electric, sewer that all run back there. We have a seawall that needs new tiebacks, cap. So that'll be the first phase of this project, and that's the things that I'm saying that we're going to be doing early, and you'll see work orders for stuff, design work orders to fix those things. Last year I did with our engineer of record, an electric as-built of what's existing out there. That's important in the design criteria package because moving forward we have to know what our electrical needs are going to be. And right now, with that marina that's there now built in 3 phases from the 50s through the 70s, it was really built, you know, piecemeal. And boats and everything out there is different today. Boats are larger, power requirements are greater, everything is air conditioning. And right now what we're having is we have boats coming into us. We can't supply the power that they need. And it's a product of what our service is out there. We have to update the service to bring more power in there. So that's what I'm working at, and one of my challenges are now. And then getting together with our stakeholders, hold those meetings, what our slip mix is going to look like, who's going to be where. And that leads me into our marina rental rates. I look back over 25 years on the rate structure and how we handle the marina rates, and more particularly with the commercial rates. Right now, when you look back at 25 years of history, our recreational rates are in line with the market. You know, we compare, and practically for the amenities we have, we probably could charge a little bit more, but all of the studies say we're at market rate for our recreational slips. Now our commercial slips, every rate study for the last 25 years has used the terms we are under market, severely under market. So those are some of our challenges, and all through those years we've tried to correct that, and our rate studies have made recommendations to do that. And how do you do that? You base it on what they're using, and some of those things they're using are space in the marina, location in the marina, utilities in the marina. With the rate structure that we have, and it was changed from a per length rate structure back in 1993, we have a passenger count rate structure. Nowhere else in Florida can I find that, or can our consultants find anybody else using that. I'm not sure of why, and I have pulled up from the archives when it went back to council in 1993 and addressed that and came up with a times zero cost for these rate structures, but it never showed the calculation. So I'm not sure where that came from. So over the years, we've only increased a percentage for all of our users. What's odd about that is that the percentage is the same regardless if you're a small fishing vessel or a dinner cruise boat. Your rate goes up the same percentage as theirs does. So that's a little awkward because they use the marina differently. So last year, one of my biggest challenges are the utilities out there. We pay the water and the sewer and the garbage for all of our tenants at the marina. And if you look at the way marinas operate, it's very typical for water, those services to be included in your rate structure, except at commercial marinas. The typical user in a marina is the weekend user. It's somebody that has their boat out there. They might be there 1 or 2 times a month, if that. The water usage is minimal, but we have businesses out there that operate 7 days a week and have charters that go out 2 and 3 times a day, and the water that they use is incredible. So last year I installed water meters at all 43 of the commercial slips to do a pilot study to see where my users were and who my users were. And what that did was made everybody aware that, oh gosh, are we going to have to start paying for water? And the problem is that people wasted a lot of water. You know, they had live hoses, everybody has ice machines, nobody corrected, the water would drip, they would wash their boats all day long. So as soon as I installed the water meters, my rates dropped 10% from month to month. So I already started seeing the savings. So it took me a while, and I didn't want a month or two. I have 6 months. I installed them last summer. It took a while to get them installed. So then I could see where it started to drop off, because people, now that you have to pay for something, you take more of a stake in it. In the first months, I had people using 50% of their rate, what they were paying in the rate. Half of that was just taken back in water, because they were using so much water. So I've told them all that, you know, water was coming their way. They all have the meters there. So I went to legal to look at our contracts and our permits. We have different permits with them. We have lease agreements for the commercial tenants. We have permits for the recreational tenants. And by ordinance, we're already able to start charging them for other services, which is things like water, trash, sewer. That was built into some ordinance changes back in the 2000s and 90s, where it gave the city manager the ability to increase rates and to capture other charges. So I'm going to begin starting charging for water May 1st based on all of the individual meters. So people are going to be paying for what they use, and everybody knows that's coming. I just wanted council and everybody to be aware of some of the things, because it's a departure from the past. We're doing things differently, trying to, with this new marina build, all of these water costs and charges continue in the future. And water at one time was very cheap. You know, 25 years ago, we didn't have the water rate structure that we have today. So where meaning the marina, is paying everybody's water bill, it's just not maintained. It's not realistic, sustainable. That's the word I'm looking for the future and the new marina. So I'm trying to bring those things up into the future. And when I look at other marinas, and I'm going to compare ourselves to John's Pass, that's the largest commercial marina that identifies as Clearwater does. They have half of the commercial slips that we do. But they have charter boats, they have fishing boats, they have a pirate ship, they have jet skis, and their slip rentals for those businesses, which include all of these utilities I'm talking about, are $3,000 to $5,000 a month. Our average slip rates are $500 to $1,200 a month. We are very much behind them. So with a waiting list of 15 years for commercial slips that does not move at all, nobody turns in a commercial slip, the way that we recover some of those things. We addressed that in changes in the past, where if somebody sells their business, we get transfer fees, we get change of use fees. So all of these things are important as we look at the new marina and how we're going to position these businesses in there, how they're going to be located. Is location more valuable if you're on Coronado, or you're tucked away all the way back by the fuel dock in that sense? And with the per passenger rather than the size of the vessel, no matter how big your boat is, if it only holds 10 passengers, you pay a certain rate. I can have a catamaran that is as wide as 2+ slips, but they can't hold, so they're using this bigger footprint in the marina, which doesn't make sense from a business standpoint. And some of our smaller vessels, which are like fishing charters, we call them 6-packs, the smallest ones. Well, a 6-pack might be in this slip tight, pays the same rate as another 6-pack that has a big dock and a walkway. It's just how they developed and got into the marina at different times. So with the new marina, we will have 6-pack slips designed for 6-packs. 12-packs are the larger fishing slips and the dinner vessels. So there's a lot of work we have to do with the stakeholders to figure out how the slip mix will work. Nobody's going to be guaranteed they're in the exact location that they are now. Some of the vessels may be the bigger ones, it's just impossible to move them. Starlight, for example, where it's positioned. The fuel dock, we have fuel over water. That's not typical these days, so we'll probably maintain that fuel dock because it's grandfathered in as such. So there's a lot of things we're working at with the rate structure, with the design criteria. I just felt it was important to talk to you all and let you know some of these changes that we already have the ability to impose them through ordinance. And then this year, Pinellas County, working with the property appraiser, we are now paying, the city is now paying property taxes on our commercial slips. So I got a big bill this year from the property appraiser, and it involved those 43 slips we're talking about. So what we had to do then was, how do we back into that bill? Because the property appraiser asked me, what do you charge for rent? So I had to give them our rent structure for all of these businesses, and working with them, it took us several months. We backed into a number to charge each individual slip. So using this other charges mechanism, I sent notice to all of the slip owners with their new property tax bill. For the smaller 6-packs I talked about, it's about $75 a year, which is not a big charge. And the other bigger boats, it would go up $150, $200, $400 for the larger ones. Not one single complaint. Nobody thinks that a commercial business shouldn't pay property taxes. I've had no complaints about utility charges. They realize they're a commercial business. They pay, a commercial business in Clearwater, everybody pays for water, trash, sewer, but not at the marina. So my plan is to get everybody in line with running a commercial business at the marina and not have the Marina Enterprise Fund continue to pay all those costs, and that gives us more ability to rebuild the marina in the future and capture them like other marinas are doing that. So that there, I'm kind of jumping around here. Update on the capital improvement, talk about the utilities. And then other things, you know, with the lease agreements at the marina, there's a lot happening at the marina now. The marina is a destination. With the new restaurants we've built there, it's not just for people using the marina for the slips and for the charters. We have people coming in there all hours of the day for the different destination restaurants. This year I have 7 leases that are up for renewal. Not the long-term leases such as Krabby's and Marina Cantina. Those were newer leases that were longer term because of the investment. But I'm looking at all of my leases out there to make sure that they're capturing everything that we're providing for them. And those are some of the same services that I have. These are very old leases that have just kind of chugged along over the years. So we're going to revamp all of those and make sure that we're capturing all that, because that revenue goes for the enterprise fund and it actually supports everything we're doing out there. And, you know, to try to make this, you know, by the time we get to 2025 when we're opening up a new marina, I see us capturing all these costs as we should be, but we're not going to do it at that time. I want to do it and ease into it. And that's why I felt it was important just to bring that to you to see if you had any questions. I'm sure you may hear some concerns or have questions from the public, but none of these things I'm telling you today are going to be a surprise to any of the users out there. I've talked to most of them, and they're all aware of, you know, what I'm planning to do and what I've presented to the city manager and what we've all talked and had. So if you have any questions there, that's all I really wanted to do, other than maybe just let you know that, you know, the Seminole launch project, we were all there for that, so that's a big project that's going to be under my group. We just added the transit station at the marina, which has been a huge success 1 month into spring break with little or no issue, no complaints. Everybody is thrilled with the circulation now in the lot, so that was a big bonus for us. So some exciting things are coming our way and things are falling into place, and I just wanted everybody to be up to speed on those.
Any questions, Mr. Foglace?
Thank you, Mayor. This is all very exciting, great news, bringing that very valuable property up to speed in many, many different arenas. 15-year waiting list for commercials, and the list never changes. So with the new design, and like you say, now we actually have a product with participants. Is there any possible way, when you redesign all these slips, is there any more room in that bed? Can we expand the amount of slips by more efficiently, a better efficient design? And if not, have we looked at any other areas in the city to expand the commercial fleet? I know that's going to be a very contentious point, but it seems to me there's much more revenue potential to support this enterprise fund in the commercial fleet than recreational, because not everybody has the 60-foot luxury liner. And then a follow-up question to that question is there current by ordinance a percentage that has to be commercial, recreational for the Clearwater Beach Marina?
No, there is not. We've only always had 50 was the maximum we've ever had, and with making some of the slips bigger for the bigger vessels, that has shrunk that down to 43. The city maintains a slip open for our purposes because we need a slip for loading, unloading, repairs, so we couldn't have everything leased out. Back to your other question as far as can we make this marina bigger, there's wasted space there now only because of the way it was built in sections and phases. It was, you know, okay, let's build here, let's build there. So as we demo and rebuild, you know, we'll capture some space. We're right now within the footprint of our submerged lands that the city owns. We could expand out beyond that, then that would require submerged land leases to do so.
Right.
So those are all things we're looking at in the slip mix. Is it worth it to expand it out? We'd have to pay the state for that use. Likely we wouldn't go commercial on those uses because of the tax thing. We could maybe put the recreational users on some submerged state lands. So those are all things. That's why I thought it was important now to know these things 2 and 3 years before we actually put this thing out to bid.
Mm-hmm. And then also within this marina footprint, are we going to be considering expanded drop-off pickup, for instance, where everybody's talking about multimodal for additional ferry capacity, because currently there's one pickup drop-off?
That's key at all of our locations, but I have a location already in a similar location for a ferry landing. And that's something that we could get grant money for, because, you know, I'm looking at this marina, there's money programmed for it. I don't know if that's enough right now, so I have to look at other avenues too. And one of them would be for transient boaters to come in and park. You know, we have a lot of people coming to the marina by boat that think there's slips there. So we have a few, and I mean 3 or 4 that are available for, you know, people that want to go to the beach, go to the shops, go to the restaurants. So yes, we're going to do some slips like that, and that's where the grant money will become available. Ferry landing, transient boaters that don't have the opportunity to come there unless they have a slip, none of which we have now. It was always been a kind of a private beach marina, commercial marina, so I want to insert those features into it as well.
With the last renovation of the actual structure, basically the entire slab was torn up, and it was discovered that stuff is extremely antiquated and in need of replacement. You said one of the first things that would be done would be to accomplish and expand the electrical capacity for these boats. That's all brand new, and tiebacks. So that's all brand new, and I know there will be concern like how long would that phase take? And of course, I'm guessing all of the patio, that entire walkway would be closed for hopefully as minimal time as it would take to do that, but it was a mess under the building footprint. Do we know what it looks like under the paver footprint closest to the water?
It pretty much is closest to the water now, so we'll have to open up that sidewalk, and we've looked at it about 4 years ago, and the costs then were about $1.3 million to do that. So we decided we would wait for this project and Band-Aided what we need. But yeah, to close off that sidewalk, it's not going to be pretty. I mean, we're going to have to, get people in and behind the marina building, whether they come around. So that's something that with this design criteria package, we will look at that, because the marina is going to have to be demolished in sections. And the way I envision it is we'll do some kind of a mooring ball platform and take these boats 10 or 20 at a time, displace them, bring them back, demo, displace them, bring them back. So how many sections is that? How many phases is that? It could be 5 or more, just so, because we can't put these people out of business. And when I talk to these folks, they all want to know, when are they starting? Am I going to be in this same slip? How long is it going to be? And I can't answer those questions yet. And that's why I need them as stakeholders to get the information, whether it's through design charrettes, and let the professionals work together, because everybody looks at their business through their eyes, and they want what they have now and nothing to change, and I don't blame them for that. But I have 43 of them, and I have to treat them all equally, so I look through everybody's eyes, and they're all going to be displaced, and we're all going to be uncomfortable for a while. But at the end of the day, it's going to be a new marina, and everybody hopefully will be happy, but it's not going to be easy getting them happy.
Thank you for allowing me to ask all those questions.
But clarify again, when is this work starting?
23.
So it's still 4 years down the road.
That's why it's hard to answer some of those early questions where the programming is so important.
Yeah. Mr. Hamilton.
2 quick questions. When this project takes place, are the slip holders, today's slip holders, aware what a good deal they're getting? And I'm sure there's going to be an adjustment in the rates after all of this money is spent. Are they aware of it and ready for that? And number 2 question, the agenda item says marine and aviation business plan. You haven't mentioned the airport at all. Just a quick synopsis of what you see, short-term, long-term, as far as the air park's concerned.
Okay, I can address that. Yes, the commercial business folks, they are aware of what's going on, and I think they are aware that they have a good deal, because I don't get any pushback when you talk about you're going to be paying property taxes, you're going to be paying for water. This year we increased the commercial rates by 10%. Last year we increased them by 10%. I have not had a single complaint for increases of 10% in 2 years. So that would just lead you to believe that everybody is just happy what they have and don't want to make any waves in the water. So they realize what's out there. That's why they all want to get in the marina. I have people call me constantly, and they're people that are already there now wanting another slip. When can they get another slip? Where am I on the list? And when somebody sells a business, they sell these businesses at inflated prices. I always say you could sell a canoe for $200,000 at Clearwater Beach Marina if it had a slip. And that's how you get into the marina, is if you buy a business. So when new people come in, they either buy a new business or they don't get in, because nobody is returning these slips back. Unless we were to force them out for violation of their contract or their lease, which none of them are violating there, so we wouldn't have cause to do that.
Aviation.
Oh, the aviation, yes. We're also looking at a lease expiration there too, coming up in 22. So right now, I've got several CIPs there now with some hangar replacements, and we're just finishing our master plan for the air park. That's being done by AECom. We're required to have a master plan for any development. We couldn't do anything out of the air park without a master plan that was accepted by DOT. So that's why we do these long-range plans. The last plan we did was in 2000. We've pretty much built out everything from that plan except for the aviation terminal. That's always been the last thing and the thing that everybody wants. We have a double wide, if you will, out there that serves as a terminal that was put out there in 2005 to tie us over a few years until we get the new terminal building. Well, here we are in 19, and we're still using that temporary building. So the master plan will be complete. It identifies a lot of projects out at the air park, and that's just it. They identify everything you could do, but we have expansion plan problems because we can't grow any. So we're looking at the things that we have to do is maintain. And what we have to maintain is what we currently have out there, our runway, our hangars, our taxiways, our weather stations. Our security is a big issue right now, so I'm working on a security grant, perimeter security gates, cameras, and the like there. I could go on for other, but we are looking at that, and we're also looking at what we're going to look like when it's time for lease renewal out at the air park.
Mr. Horn.
Mayor, Ed has done, in my opinion, a very good job of getting a real good assessment as to what is needed both in the marina and in the air park. You will continue to hear these updates. What he has charted out, we could not do in 2000. We could not do it because there was a great deal of sensitivity on the part of the council to what kind of disruptions we might be causing in the marina. And so we are at a point, though, historically, we're at a point where we cannot ignore some of these changes. The document that he attached to his agenda item provides a very good narrative in writing of kind of the evolution of what's happened, with the marina. So that's a good benchmark. And it's great to hear that our stakeholders are working with him and kind of understand that we have been rather supportive of the businesses out there in many ways in areas where we should have been a little bit more demanding. But we're working with them. It's going to work out. You still may get some complaints, but I think we're on a path that, again, unless you tell us not to, we know what direction that we need to go.
Let's clarify one other thing. There was a 5% increase in 2015 for the residential marina slips?
Yes.
Okay, and there was none in 16 or 17?
No.
What about 18? 18,
they got a 5% again, the residential, and in 19 they got a 3%.
Okay.
Because so now that's where we kind of are now at that 3%.
Okay. Yeah, no, it just wasn't in our material, so I wanted to double check that. Okay. Yeah. And all of that is handled, it doesn't come to the council so that people will understand. This is an administrative authority that the manager has to do that. Right.
Yep.
Okay.
Unless it exceeded 10%.
Right. Okay. As the manager said, thank you very much for all your work. We appreciate that. And your staff, too. Can't forget your staff.
We've been busy, and I'm sure that they'll appreciate that. Thank you.
10.1.
Authorize surplus disposition of identified vehicles via auction to the highest bidder pursuant to City Code Section 2.622, surplus personal property, and authorize the appropriate officials to execute same. Mr. Kozich.
Good morning. Perry Compton, Fleet Manager. The vehicles listed below were wrecked and deemed a total loss by risk or were prohibitive to repair. Risk has reimbursed the following amounts to these vehicles. RMC approved the replacement of 3931 and 3936, and their prospective replacements have already been ordered.
Any questions on 10.1? Mr. Kunda.
These were listed both as wrecked in January and February.
Mm-hmm.
Was it a bad year for 2013 Tahoes? Or that's when it was deemed no longer usable? Was it actually wrecked before that?
No, they were wrecked in, but the process took a while. Mm-hmm. And they were told.
Consent? 11.1, Ms. Call.
Reappoint Sally Parks to the Sister Cities Advisory Board with a term to expire April 30, 2022. Council members, in your agenda pack, I have the application for Ms. Parks. She is the only individual that we have on file to serve in this capacity, and she is willing to be reappointed.
Consent? 11.2.
Elect a council member to serve as vice mayor. Council members, as you are aware, first meeting in April, council is required by charter to elect a vice mayor. You can either provide it to me tonight or Thursday night, you can discuss it.
Council?
Wasn't it, well, I've been here a while, I'm on, but is it David's turn, or I don't remember who was vice mayor before that? Wait, were you before?
No, it was
I've enjoyed the last
right?
4 months.
Doreen was,
My apology then.
Ms. Caudell was the vice mayor.
And then Councilman Cundiff has assumed the position for the last 4 months.
I see. So he didn't get a full year.
Correct.
I mean, we've,
All right, I'll make it easy for you guys. I'm going to bring this up again, and you'll shoot it down every time I bring it up. But we ought to just go on a rotation and just do it on a rotating basis. That's all I'm going to say.
and without it being said, it's kind of been a rotation basis, it's been on a rotating basis without it being codified. And looking at, what we were, I mean, Councilmember Cundiff, it would be his turn in the ring as of this year. And I mean, looking to the future, the year after that would be Councilmember Albritton. And then the year after that, I'm not sure. So, I mean, I was it last year, or year previous.
Year before.
And then Doreen, and then Dr. Cundiff, Mr. Albritton, and
And I think that's good because I think you should go ahead. Thank you for filling in for Doreen for that, but I would be good for letting you do it as the rotation would hit you next, and then me next after that.
Right.
But that's not what I call a rotation. A rotation is that it's just done. That whatever seat you have, and my preference had always been, and this is where we have gotten the pushback from councils even before you guys, is that it's not, that you're not the vice mayor when you're on the ballot.
Oh, I see.
Okay.
Okay.
And that was the pushback that we had received in the past. But,
I'll make a motion.
Well,
you can't do.
You can't make a motion.
You can't make a motion. So, but we can put it on consent, right?
Yes, so if there is consensus on,
For Mr. Cundiff to continue, then we can put that on, or if you want to go some other way, we can do that.
Well, I wasn't taking into account that the election would be,
next year.
yeah.
Yeah.
So,
Well, I don't know that I think most people understand that vice mayor is a title, and especially, I think we had one issue, meeting before last where the mayor wasn't here, but the vice mayor is truly, it's title only. I know, and I've been vice mayor 3 times. And I think in the total 3 times I was vice mayor, I actually got referred to as vice mayor 10 times. I'm a council member. We're all council members. It's strictly a title. It's kind of a sitting, it's a place to just basically name someone who, in the case that the mayor is not available, and with our present mayor, that's almost never, they will preside. So it's really it's a weightless, powerless title. But
Well, I appreciate your saying that, Mr. Hamilton, because, to me, and I've been, in this business probably, for a long time, when you have a title and then you lose it the next year, you almost have to, defend, well, why don't you have the title anymore? And so your point is right, it's a title, but it is to help with the process of the city. Unfortunately, there are others who view that as a title, and that's why, I'm thinking that if you have it, on a rotating basis, when you're not running for office, then it doesn't imply to the public that you're more than just, more than that.
Maybe, and I don't know I don't know if we could do it on a rotating basis where seat 2, then seat whatever. If we can do it by seat number, if we want to get into a rotating basis, do it by seat number where we can align the seat numbers such that nobody would be vice mayor when that seat is up for re-election. Or,
Well, in this particular case, we had the glitch in that, so
I mean,
that wouldn't have worked.
it may not be fair to do it now, but, that's something that I've been suggesting, and like I said, we really haven't, nobody had expressed any desire to even talk about it, so I appreciate y'all wanting to talk about it today.
Because I can promise you, I'm not going to lose a minute's sleep if I'm not vice mayor ever. It's really not going to bother me. So it's not a big deal. So maybe we can look into that and bring it forward in such a way where we codify it or establish it as a rule that, the vice mayor seat rotates in a certain order, beginning with
in
first meeting of April
2020.
Next year.
Yeah, or in 2020.
So we'll let our city clerk and our city attorney tell us if that's...
We can do it by rule.
Okay. We can do that, adopt it as our rule.
Or policy.
Okay.
We'll look into it. Okay, so for Mr. Kundip, may I have it on consent, or?
Yes.
Is that all right? Okay.
Yes, absolutely.
Okay. And then we do our rules.
So at the next meeting, I'll present rules and policies for everybody to review, and the following meeting after that, we can make any changes.
Okay. Sound good?
Yep.
11.3.
Appoint council members as representatives to serve on regional and miscellaneous boards. Council members, in your agenda packs, I provided a listing of all the regional boards that you serve on at different capacities. We can go through the boards as listed, if you like. I will like to note that I believe some of you were copied on an email that Mr. Johnson sent last night regarding the Citizen Advisory Committee. The county did not advise us on the city-wide representatives, so those are representatives representing the city of Clearwater, but that are not selected by the city council. And we did confirm the representatives currently serving in that capacity. Louis Cerna and Mr. Johnson are both serving, and we've asked the county to at least keep us apprised as membership changes on that committee.
Clarify the Citizens Advisory Committee to the MPO. Our nominee is Neil McMullen.
It used to be. So these are individuals who are not elected officials that serve as the Clearwater representative, and it's supposed to be Ford Pinellas, not to the MPO.
But Mr. McMullen doesn't live in Clearwater.
No, that's why he is no longer serving. So I guess when he moved out of city limits, he informed the county that he was no longer...
Oh, because so he's not, even though the list shows him as...
We confirmed it this morning. We were not aware that there was a change in membership. They did not advise us of the change, so that's why I'm making that notation right now.
Okay, so he's not on, he's not
on, so it's Louis Cerna and Mr. Johnson, and I'll have the item updated for Thursday's meeting.
Okay. Also, the Conference of Mayors Council, when I became mayor, we were in the, middle of our, cutbacks. And it was costing us $10,000 to be a member of the U.S. Conference of Mayors. And I'm sorry, I could not justify, that. I saw no value, to the city for us to be a member of the U.S. Conference of Mayors, and we were having to make cutbacks. And I still do not see much value for us. They don't do much for smaller communities anyway. I hope that that doesn't mean that we've been paying, or we started paying this again.
I don't think so, but I will
Okay.
confirm, and I'll make sure that the
Yeah.
list is updated.
No, we're not.
Okay, yeah,
We're not.
no, yeah.
Once she said.
Right, yeah,
Lord,
no, okay, but I saw it on here, and I panicked, and I just wanted everybody to understand that, that's an organization for a big city, I think, and this year, the conference, are y'all ready for this? Is in Honolulu. Now, Carolyn would probably love for me to take her to Honolulu, but I'm sorry, I just
Maybe
have.
that's something the vice mayor should.
Is that included in the fee, the 10,000?
No, and you had to see the fees to go after you sign up to go. I mean, it just made absolutely no sense to me that we were even thinking of maintaining that or even doing it initially. So, anyway, okay. Some other changes, because we don't have Mr. Poglaze down on anything.
No, this is the revised list since Ms. Caudell resigned, and we had to, move around. And I know, Councilman, not that my heart isn't with it as well, but I know Councilman Poglaze is very interested in the downtown area. I would be willing to give up my position on the Downtown Development Board to Mr. Poglaze without any problem.
Okay.
I know he would represent us
I would
well
be
there.
interested in that. And again, Mayor, we couldn't make any changes until this meeting.
Right,
So,
right.
yeah.
Mr. Albright.
And also, I noticed I've had some conflicts. I would really like to stay on transportation, the PSTA and Ford Pinellas, when they expire in November or October or September. But the Courtney Campbell Scenic Highway seems to interfere, or I have a conflict with those other two boards. I think I've only made 2 meetings, so I would be good to
I'll do
give.
that one.
Okay.
Yeah, I like that one. My son lives on the other side of the bridge, so it makes sense. And by the way, Tampa's doing quite a bit over there too. Not only
Yeah,
for
no,
the
they are.
estuary, the Tampa Bay area, but we're doing our part on the. So that's
Mr.
good.
Cundiff had something.
It is a good board.
I was going to add that I also work with the Pinellas Ex-Offender Rehabilitation Coalition once a month. And then also the Pinellas Ex-Offender Rehabilitation Coalition.
Is that one that we appoint?
No.
Okay, well then it doesn't.
Oh, all right.
Yeah.
And so the Clearwater Arts Alliance is not appointed either.
Okay,
And I
no.
work with them.
Okay.
And I guess
Sir.
the only other one is, I don't know if Mr. Poglaze has any interest in the Pension Advisory
No.
Committee as a pension, as a pension holder, someone who receives a pension, you understand how pensions work and everything very well. I've served on that committee for a long time. If you'd like to do that, I'd be willing to give that up. If you don't, I'd be happy to stay on.
Well, I was going to suggest that I switch off, since I took Miss Caudell's place.
Well, or that would be,
but-
would be fine.
but it
too,
doesn't,
'cause
you know.
You're on an awful lot
Yeah.
of other committees, so.
Fortunately, they don't,
Okay,
you know,
I'll
they
stay
haven't
on the
caused
pension
a-
and maybe
Okay.
I'll probably.
Just to have you guys both know, I'm going to be lobbying for council members to get a pension. If I start going to that.
Yeah, good luck.
Just kidding.
It doesn't work. Because you're not paying into the program.
I was just kidding.
I know, but they might not know that. We do not pay into the city pension program.
No,
Okay.
Or do we take out of it?
All right, so we'll switch B.
Okay.
Is that, all right?
That's fine,
Okay.
I'll stay on
All
that.
With
right.
those changes, may I place it on consent?
With
for
those
Thursday?
changes, consent, okay?
Absolutely.
Great. 11.4.
Schedule a special council meeting on May 14, 2019 at 2 p.m. for the purpose of holding a strategic planning session. Council, per council policy, staff is required to plan a strategic planning session, and we have looked at your calendars as well as the consultant that will be regarding the compensation and classification study will also be attending the session as well.
Is that okay for consent, council?
Yes.
Okay. We're almost at our 11 o'clock hour, but I think we only have 2 more Mr. Poglace has asked that we pull agenda item 15.1, so we just have the second readings left with the exception of 2 items. So is it okay to continue, council?
Yes.
Staff, is that all right?
I have a question regarding
Ma'am.
15.1. Are we pulling to
We'll
Thursday
do
or
it with-
to
no,
pulling it off?
We'll talk it when we get there. I was just saying that
Oh,
for
okay.
purposes of trying to decide timing, we don't have to consider that. Okay, 12.1. Ms. Aiken.
Request authority to institute a civil action on behalf of the city against R.J. Kelty Plumbing, Heating and Cooling, Inc. to recover $3,232.77 for damaged city property. Mr. Hall.
Mayor, members of council, this item arises from 2 separate incidents in which an employee of R.J. Kelty using a traco damaged our gas line. Total damages, as you can see, are over $3,000, and despite our attempts to reach them and resolve the matter, they've not responded, so we're asking the authority to sue.
Questions on 12.1?
Go get them.
And this goes back again, remind us, 2015.
Yes, sir.
And Mr. Horn, how many times do we hear that the city is slow to respond and is not business friendly and?
Well, we hear it less than we used to, but we still hear it.
Yeah. Consent?
Yes.
12.2.
Request authority to institute a civil action on behalf of the city against Diversified Landscape Maintenance and Construction, Inc. to recover $1,936.05 for damaged city property. Mr. Hall.
In this item, an employee of Diversified Landscaping using a shovel damaged one of our gas lines, and damage almost $2,000. And again, in spite of several attempts to reach them and resolve the matter, they've not responded, and so we're asking the authority to sue.
Questions on 12.2? And this goes back to 2016. Consent?
Yes.
12.3.
Request authority to settle case of City of Clearwater versus Eva Long, case number 18-5969-CL, and Mr. Fuino.
Thank you, Ms. Aiken. Good morning, members of council. Michael Fuino, Assistant City Attorney. This request asks the city to settle a code enforcement lien foreclosure that was instituted in September. The property that is the subject to the foreclosure has been brought into full compliance after the lawsuit was filed. It is a residential property owned by an individual, not a corporation, and the individual has represented that the amounts that the settlement calls for is all that she can be willing to pay. Those amounts are for the city's investigative and administrative costs in prosecuting the code enforcement procedure, and for the legal costs and fees in instituting the foreclosure. The settlement also calls for the individual to promise that in the next 6 months, if any code enforcement issues arise, the city is entitled to a final judgment in the full amount of the actual lien, which will make the settlement null and void. But if those conditions are met, the city will release the lien from the property.
Questions on 12.3? No. Mr. Condiff.
And the property, I think you may have said this, has been brought up to compliance.
And it's residential. Consent?
Yes.
12.4 is to be continued. 12.5 is to be continued. 12.6, 12.7, 12.8, 12.9, 12.10, 12.11, 12.12, 12.13, 12.14, 12.15, 12.16 are second readings. Any questions on the second readings? Okay. Anything further for us, Ms. Aiken?
No, sir.
Mr. Horn?
No, Mayor.
And then agenda item 15.1, Mr. Poglaze, I'll let you say that you can.
Yeah, subsequent information and phone calls I've received does not necessitate we have a discussion Thursday. I think we're already on that based on information I've received, that we're going to be looking at many different multimodal options, especially all the aerial and potential water taxi expansion. in that letter that you had addressed. So I'm
Okay.
good. Thank you.
Very good. Anything further, council? Again, let me remind you to call 1-800-277-5653 if you want Prince.
I got a call back from
You
that
got a
number
call number.
during the meeting.
Who was it? Oh, it was Prince. Which Prince was it?
William.
What? No, not William.
King of Spain.
No, William?
You started off with Prince William.
Oh, okay. Well, come visit the
But the
colony.
King of Spain
All right.
will be fine.
Okay. Our next meeting will be at 6 o'clock. Well, we have a work session at 2 o'clock, and we have our next council meeting will be Thursday, April the 4th at 6 o'clock.